Is it okay if I film now? Yes? Hi and welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome in general. My name's Eureka and we're in a different environment today because I am now a full-time dog sitter. If you know me, you know how much I love dogs. It's a thing. I really like them and I really want one, but I can't have one right now. And then one of my good friends from skating, go follow her because she's insane. Due to unforeseen circumstances, she had to take a full-time 9-to-5 job and then was in need of a full-time 9-to-5 dog sitter for her lovely dog Bo. So that means I'm now here 5 days a week. I can work in her house. It's such a great house. I can work so much better here than in my old house. That's why I've been able to maintain consistency so far. If you've noticed, thank you very much. And also a dog. She's just so nice. All right, without any further ado though, let's get into the thing you're here for, the story. No, wait, first we're doing a disclaimer so that people know that I don't mean any harm and that I'm not a professional and stuff. So this video is for educational and storytelling purposes only. Never do I mean any harm to the people I talk about, nor any disrespect, apart from maybe sometimes towards the offenders. And also, this video contains graphic descriptions of violence. This one especially is, it could be very triggering. So viewer discretion is advised. All right, now let's get into the story. When I finished writing this story, I realized that it was going to be pretty difficult for me not to swear in the first like 7-ish minutes because YouTube doesn't like it when you do that. You'll see why. This case has a lot of very interesting names and also some very questionable Facebook posts. So yeah, if you see me having some brain errors in the next couple of minutes, it's probably because I'm trying not to swear. So today's story is actually about something that happened this year in February on the 23rd, which is actually a day before Russia invaded Ukraine. And this seems like a good time to remind you that every time I still put in the description box some links on how to help out in war zones all over the world. So if you're feeling like being a good woman today, please click on that and see what you're able to help with. So today's story starts off with a woman living in Sacramento, California. She's 24 years old and her name is Taylor Denise Schabusiness. And this question-raising last name was a bit complicated, but this is how far I've got. In 2018, she changed her name from Coronado to Schabusiness when she married a guy named Warren. However, when you look at Warren's official papers, his name is not Schabusiness, but it's Shabao. If you look on Warren's Facebook page, it spells Schabusiness. So, and also I don't know if they're like legally married, not that it matters, but because Taylor filed for the name change herself. But I could say that they're married, I think, because they both have each other's names tattooed in their necks. So now both Taylor and Warren were also very active on Facebook, daily posting on their pages about, well, let me just show you. Taylor's Facebook intro is family over everything, King Warren fired Taylor, Black Heart Mateo King. Mateo is her son, her little son. Money bag, business way, money bag. So yeah, and it says they're married. If we want to learn a bit more about someone's personality, not always is social media a good place to check, but in this case, it did teach me a lot about the person that Taylor might be, because her posts go a little bit like this. Went off and told an addict, I'll never stop buying you dope so I could sit back and watch you die. Fun times. Another one on that same day was, I got hitched to show them my commitment, loyalty and dedication to them, that I was never gonna be how I used to be. Then they turn around and fuck on me. Oh, that was profanity. Did I edit that out? Please tell me I didn't forget. There's no way I'll ever go into another relationship. Hashtag can't trust no one. Now, in January of 2017, Taylor had to go to prison for a short while. And it happens, right? and described their love for each other. Warren posted this on Facebook: to make sure that my queen knows that no matter if we're apart or not, that I will do whatever is necessary to get her back next to me. Never will I give up on her, nor will I ever lose confidence in our Schabusiness empire. The Schabusiness shuffle hustle XOXO heart love heart king pappy boo Schabusiness check period. Right? Now, in 2020, her husband Warren, Taylor was out of prison at that moment, but her husband Warren had to go to prison. So, they switch roles kind of, and in her turn, Taylor would visit her boo in prison quite often. But however close they look in this photo, Taylor quickly started to miss some fun and some nude canoodling in her life. And soon she would start to have multiple affairs. And then last year, in 2021, she had a little baby boy. Congratulations! However, with her husband being in prison and all, the chances of that baby boy actually being his are quite small. He was a bastard. Now, Taylor here actually already had quite the criminal record when she went to prison, because she had previously been arrested for some drug paraphernalia, some assault here, some battery there, a little probation for this and a little probation for that. Actually, Taylor would still be on probation when the events of today's case would take place last February. So Taylor here, she's a bit naughty, okay? And one day she's just kind of like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And she decides to cut off her life by cutting off her ankle bracelet, because she was on probation at the time. So she cuts off her ankle bracelet and makes a run for it. And I know she went to Greenbay, Wisconsin, but I'm not quite sure where she went to stay or if she took her son with her. But yeah, she ends up in Greenbay, Wisconsin. And shortly after, she would meet a guy, 25-year-old Shad Rock Thyrion. And even though they have really different personalities, they kind of click immediately and they hit it off. So Tay and Shad the lad are roaming the streets together, doing some heavy drugs, wreaking some havoc, live, laugh, etc. Within this relationship, Taylor was more of the dominant one who made the decisions and the presence that you immediately felt, whilst Shad was more withdrawn and a bit shy. I think you can see it in his photos as well. He looks pretty cute. But he also was someone who was troubled, mainly with his mental health, and he was very open about being in that dark mental place on Facebook. For instance, he posted this, stay away because you're going to live a happier life than I am. And this sounded very painful. With nobody's help, I can gladly say fuck all you for no help. And so yeah, it definitely seemed like Shad was a person in need of mental help and some guidance. And I want to say that if you find yourself posting stuff like this on Facebook, I really hope that you have help, or that you'll find the courage to find help, because there is help. And it can change. Just some sidetracked advice from Auntie Yorkie here. It also seemed like whenever Taylor and Shad had a fight together, either one of them or both would post about it on Facebook. Now, today's case would start to take place on Monday, the 22nd of February 2022, when Taylor, along with her friend and her van, drove to Shad's house to pick him up and go hang out. So they picked Shad up, they drove to Taylor's house, and I'm not quite sure if it was Taylor's house or her friend's house that she was staying at, but they drove to her house and they start doing some heavy drugs. But then at some point, the friend of them wasn't really into the amount of drugs that Taylor and Shad were doing, and also not in the way that they were doing, because they were injecting themselves. And so in the early hours of the nighttime, they drove back to Shad's place to continue their hanging over there. Now, Shad still lived with his mum, and when they arrived early in the morning of Tuesday, the 23rd of February, Shad's mum's boyfriend was still awake, and so he let them into the house, and Taylor and Shad went immediately down to the basement, where sort of his man cave was, where they could hang out and do some more drugs. Now, immediately after sitting down, Taylor injected herself and Shad with some trazodone, which is a prescribed antidepressant, but is almost as close to sort of a hard drug as you can get legally, from what I could find. I don't know, I've never had trazodone. I was, however, thinking on maybe doing an episode on what kind of medication I'm on, if people would find that interesting, and what they do for me and all that stuff. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you want that. For real though, let me know in the comments if you want that. But yeah, so they were doing trazodone, they were also doing meth, and they were smoking some weed. Early in the next morning of the 23rd, Shad's mum, Tara, woke up because she heard the storm door, which is a huge door of the basement, slam shut with a loud bang, and then the sound of a vehicle driving off. And she assumed that this was Taylor driving off. And so she figured she would say hi to Shad in his basement and maybe also possibly ask him if his girlfriend could maybe not close the door like a maniac. But we'll never know. So Shad's mum, she goes down to the basement and she saw that the lights were still on. So she thinks, okay, he's still home. She walks down the stairs and she calls out his name, but she hears nothing. And then she figured maybe he just left the basement lights on, forgot to turn them off again. And she walks over to the basement door. She opens it just a little bit, only looking for the sun. And so she opens the door and she peeks through it, but actually immediately notices that Shad isn't there. So she closes the door again, turns the lights off, and starts walking back towards the stairs. However, when she does so, in the corner of her eyes, she sees a bucket that she doesn't recognize, and the bucket had a beach towel over it that she also didn't recognize. She got kind of curious and she walks over towards the bucket. She looks at it and she takes the beach towel and she lifts it up. And what she sees underneath inside the bucket is Shad's head and penis. Yeah. Shad's mum immediately manages to contact the police, which is beyond me how you do that when you've found out what you've just found in that bucket. But she contacts the police and they get over straight away. And when the police officers go into the basement, they actually see things that Shad's mum had overlooked when she looked in the basement before, because she'd only peeked in so quickly. The basement was actually a bloodbath. Immediately on it, the police make their way over to where Taylor was staying, to that apartment. And when they get there, they see that Taylor's van is parked outside the house. And so they figure, okay, let's search the van first before we go look for Taylor, because maybe we can still find some evidence in the van that's not been tampered with. And whilst the police start searching the van, start setting up to search the van, Taylor, who was inside the house, actually walks out into the front yard and just starts sort of sheepishly looking at the officers like, hi. And the police officers turn around and she's like, yo, what's going on? They see her and she's actually covered in blood. Her clothes had not been washed or anything. She wasn't nervous about it. She was just standing there in the front yard looking at them with her full outfit covered in blood. So the police are like, okay, and they go over to her and they ask, hey, do you have any idea why we're here? And she goes, yeah, for my warrant, because of like cutting off her ankle bracelet. And the police is like, kind of. Police start questioning her about, hey, look, funny story. We just found your boyfriend's head and genitalia in a bucket. His mum actually found it, so that was pretty traumatizing. Do you know anything about that? And to this, Taylor reacts with, wow, that's like really messed up. Yes, it is, Taylor. It didn't take long at all for her to actually start confessing to everything that she had done and to what had happened. And all of a sudden, she starts sort of doing this weird, cringy giggle whilst saying, you're gonna have fun finding all of his body parts. In the meantime, some other police officers are still looking through the van, and one of them would find behind the driver's seat on the floor of the car, do you say floor? They would find a big crock pot, like a slow cooker. And inside this crock pot were a foot and a bit of leg. So they immediately go back to Taylor and say, hey, care to explain this crockpot situation? And then Taylor would tell them the following story. Hey, hi. You come to say hi. You're so soft and fluffy, I love you. Oh, you like that skirt, don't you? Oh, okay, sweetie, I need to film now. Are you gonna lay down here or no? No? Okay, bye. Sorry about that. So Taylor tells the police that 5 minutes-ish after they go into the basement, they would do all those drugs. And about 5 minutes after that, they would start to get very turned on. And so they started having sex. Now, Taylor tells the police that choking and BDSM were a big part of their sex life. And I feel like I don't need to explain that to you because obviously you are very smart and non-judgmental, and I'm very proud of you for that. You're amazing. However, I do not want to say that obviously people who practice BDSM are not necessarily gruesome killers like Taylor is. BDSM actually stands for bondage, discipline, domination, submission, and sadomasochism, and is all based on consent. So, yeah. Just quick side note from Auntie Yorkie again, that if you know a person that's into BDSM, there's no need to judge them or avoid them or anything like that. Got it? Great. Let's continue. And so they start having sex, and Taylor would put a dog collar on Shad's neck, but also a metal dog chain, and it was one of those chains that is a single chain with just a ring at the end. So she put that chain around Shad's neck and she starts choking him whilst she's on top of him. Taylor would tell the police that this is when she blacked out, which is ironic. I feel like there's dog hair everywhere. There probably is. So she's pulling the chain, right? Loving it. And at some point, Shad actually starts to choke. Taylor says that she blacked out for a minute and that when she woke up, Shad had turned completely purple. And now she says it wasn't her initial intention to kill him or anything. However, that when she saw this, instead of being alarmed and thinking, oh my God, no, it gave her such a rush that she just couldn't stop herself from pulling that chain. The detectives asked her if Shad put up a fight at all, and she said yes. She just sat on top of him, watching him struggle. And then at some point, blood would start to come out of Shad's mouth. And police said, why didn't you stop when you saw blood coming out of his mouth? And she said, yeah, I kind of figured it was already too late by then. And also, I just really didn't want to stop. She actually said to the police, do you know the feeling of loving something so much that you want to kill it? And I think she sort of tried to describe cuteness aggression, which is an actual thing, which most people have with like puppies or kittens or baby pandas or seals or piglets. Let's not forget piglets, you know, where you just like see, that's a healthy way to get sidetracked. However, Taylor here unfortunately got sidetracked with choking Shad, and then it actually gets worse. Because when she realized that Shad was definitely deceased, she went and played with his body, as in with her own naked body and also with various phallic-y shaped toys. Yeah, you understand what I mean. And if you didn't, that's probably for the best. But yeah, she would actually do so, playing with his body for hours. And when she was done with this, Taylor decided that she maybe sort of needed to do something with this mess. Spot on thinking, Taylor. Can't wait to hear your plan. Taylor, she went to the kitchen. Remember that Shad's mum and her boyfriend were asleep in that same house. Taylor goes to the kitchen and she just gets a couple of random kitchen knives from Shad's mother. She would actually tell the police that the serrated bread knife was the best knife to use to cut the bones with. That was the one that she found most useful. So that's a helpful tip for you. And then she proceeded to do this kind of cringy, villainy laugh. So yeah, instead of loading all of his body parts into the van, she just kind of stored them away in the basement. And Taylor, I read this, has actually been diagnosed with a few mental health diagnoses, which is a word I know how to pronounce now. Thank you very much. Diagnoses. And one of them is ADHD and ADD combined type. And I almost feel like we're seeing a sort of very extreme version of task avoidance here. Like, you know, those ADHD doom piles. It's an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. You know, like if you shove it underneath the bed or in a drawer that you know you will never open, it doesn't exist anymore. Problem solved. Life sorted. It almost feels like that's the way that Taylor went about cleaning up her crime scene. Took the shower and sort of cleaned off a little bit, but also not really, because the police could see blood spatter everywhere. His torso and a few knives were found in a storage box, like one of those plastic ones, and all the other body parts were just shoved away in bags wherever you could shove them away, in or under. And as we know, also his head and penis were in the bucket with the beach towel over it. When the police asked Taylor, hey, why did you leave the bucket out like that? Why didn't you clean it up, I say, but like the rest of the body parts? And to this, she kind of went, wow, can't believe I forgot the head though. She just kind of forgot about the head in the bucket. Now, obviously, Taylor was immediately arrested and she made her first court appearance on March 1st in Brown County Court in Greenbay, Wisconsin. And she's charged with first-degree murder, intentional homicide, sexual assault, and mutilating a corpse. And the assistant district attorney said that this definitely was the worst case that he had ever seen. The court set a $2 million in cash bond on Taylor because they really deemed her a flight risk as well. Now, I've looked at all the court footage because there's been 3 hearings so far. Look at me being a true crime YouTuber. But I've looked at all the court footage, and from what I could gather is that she is now sort of in the process of being deemed fit to stand trial or not, like if she's mentally sane or not. And in the first hearing, they asked for a mental evaluation, and the court provided that. And then the second hearing, which was in May, I think, this professional psychiatrist assigned by the court would say that Taylor was indeed fit to stand trial. And then her attorneys, her appointed civil attorneys, they asked for a second opinion, which was rare because the court also said, we're not going to do that because the professional that we've used on a lot of cases, and we've used her as a base of a verdict many times. So it would be unfair if now we wouldn't do it, and also we're not going to spend money on that. And so the court said, if you, Taylor, or your attorneys want to pay for a second opinion, we would be happy to listen to it. And I think that's what's being sorted out right now. But if Taylor is found mentally fit to stand trial, she faces life in prison. And if she is deemed unfit to stand trial, she will probably be sent to a mental facility. So yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated as this goes. And I do want to go back to Shad's family for a minute because they have started a GoFundMe page, which I have linked down below, so please click on that if you feel like you're able to help. Because I do want to say that obviously I joke a lot about the offenders and their stupid decisions, because it makes these awful stories more digestible. But also I want to emphasize that obviously what Shad's family is going through, and mainly what his mum went through, was absolutely traumatic and is absolutely nothing to be made fun of. I just wanted that said. Imagine finding your son's head in a bucket, and then also that he's been taken away from you by this absolute arse twat of a person. I'm sorry, there I go again, but you know what I mean. And also, now I'm really going off here, she still has this dude Warren in prison somewhere, and a son that's not even 1 year old yet. So really hope that little boy is doing good. I've heard that he's staying with family and that he's okay, so that's great. Also, now I'm really going off here, is I want to talk a little bit about drugs, right? In the sense of that drugs aren't necessarily bad, okay? I mean, happy belated 420 from Amsterdam, everyone. So drugs aren't necessarily a reason to deem someone a criminal, but then on the other hand, it's also not an excuse. So yeah, it's a fine line really. But what I do realize is that if you mix all of these drugs that they were doing, trazodone, weed and meth, you mix all those together and stir in all her mental health diagnoses, which is bipolar disorder, ADHD combined type, and PTSD, and also pretty fucked up childhood, that the cocktail you're gonna end up with gonna be pretty disgusting, you know. And obviously I'm not making excuses for her, but I just want to say that I get that she was Also, what I find interesting, like fascinating about cases like this, is our brain. I'm excited. when it comes to our brain. I find it so fascinating because think about it, right? Obviously, I'm not a professional, etc., but I think that maybe her bipolar disorder was maybe untreated and also had working together with all of these drugs that she was doing, maybe triggered an episode of mania, which is a common thing for people with bipolar disorder. Obviously, bipolar doesn't mean crazy serial killer with mania all the time. But, you know, that could have been one of the reasons. And especially nowadays, there's great professional help for it, so those symptoms can be lived with. But yeah, I think it's important to try and understand what's going on in another person's mind without judging them first. I get really nerdy when it comes to our brains because I find it so fascinating. Think about it, like open head surgeries. Pull a little tiny string and all of a sudden someone's entire personality just changes. And also antidepressants, for instance, because they do stuff to your mood, which then does something to your thinking, the way you think, and thus does something to your personality. Your personality is just affected by so many different things, and I think we could just, you know, try to remember that. I'll just never get tired of learning about our brains. But yeah, long story short, it's not an excuse, but I do get that she was pretty fucked up. By media outlets, actually, she's being called the female Jeffrey Dahmer because he also killed his victims by strangulation. And it was also said by a few news outlets that she had this infatuation with Jeffrey Dahmer, but I never could really see this like confirmed or talked about. So I didn't want to include that as like a part of the story, but now you know anyways. And who knows, maybe she does have a small infatuation with Jezza here, so we'll never know, I guess. Or maybe we will when the trial starts, and I will definitely be covering that, which feels very cool to say. But yeah, as for now, that's the story of Taylor Denise Schabusiness, sorry. If you enjoyed going over the story with me, then please do the likey, subscribey things on YouTube because I'm seeing my analytics change for the first time and more of my viewers are from the United States. So, hi, welcome. I know it's still a very small channel, but I've learned not to compare ourselves to other things because I'm really passionate about this and I'm having a lot of fun. So we're just going to keep going. Does it show, by the way, that I'm diagnosed with ADHD? And also for those of you that have eyes, this is indeed my own hair. However, it's still not my total haircut that you're seeing because there's still a bandana and there's a reason for that. And I will make a video about that, I think next week, because I did a thing. It's really bad this time, and I know I keep saying that, and then maybe you think, oh, it's not that bad, actually. Let me tell you, this time it's really bad. There's actually like a big chunk. It's not good. But I'm actually okay with it because the bandana covers it. So until it grows back, we're all good. Nothing really affects me anymore. So that's great. I'm actually doing good. So yeah, a few years back, if this would have happened, because when you see it, I would have cried so much. Like it's the worst thing I've ever done to my hair by far. But then again, I'm actually happier than I've ever been in my life right now, so that's pretty nice. Did I talk a lot just now because today's story was a bit shorter than the others? Maybe. So yeah, let's close it off now. I hope you had a good time. Please do the likey, subscribey things. Give yourself a big kiss in the mirror from me. Tell the ones that you love them, and I will see you again next week. Bye! Bye! Not a... You know, never do I mean any harm to the hashtag. And she decides to cut off her line. Oh, that's scary. Ow. Found a stick on the ground, and now I'm gonna use it. All this power that you found, gonna totally abuse it. Gonna hit so much stuff. Don't care what people say, cause he found a stick. I love you.